A shooting near Mississauga Road. A woman goes to hospital in life-threatening condition while police try to figure out how this happened. Stabbing on a streetcar this afternoon near University and Dundas. Someone is in custody. We're going to have a live update from the scene in moments. World premiere, celebrities, the red carpet, and protests. We're going to tell you about the turn Day 6 at TIFF has taken. Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, the two candidates for U.S. president debate tonight. We have your preview coming up. This is Live at 5. Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage. A woman's fighting for her life in hospital after being shot near the QEW and Mississauga Road. And police are searching for who did this. Let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan, who's in Mississauga this evening. Melissa.
Bakari, I just got off the phone with Peel Police just moments ago asking for an update on this victim, a 33-year-old woman, her condition. They're saying that she does remain in life-threatening condition this hour. Kind of a bizarre circumstance to tell you about. A vehicle with 3 women inside pulled up to this area where I am here right now at Mississauga Road and the QEW around 4 a.m. One woman in that vehicle suffering from gunshot wounds. One of the women in the vehicle ran out to a construction site, approached workers, saying that her friend needs help. Can you do something for us? And here's what one of the construction workers, this is how he described the scene.
I was outside working by the asphalt, and obviously like a woman was like running, and obviously she was hysterical and everything, and she kept on running on the phone, calling 911, asking for help and assistance, and called the officer that was off duty, that was where our job site was, and asked to go check on the person that got shot in the head.
Now, we should mention, too, that while this vehicle pulled up with a woman inside who was injured, the shooting didn't happen here. It happened, police believe, quite a distance away at Mississauga Road and Dalton, that area. They say that the suspects managed to flee the scene before police arrived here. No word yet on any suspect descriptions, no vehicle descriptions, but police are saying that this is an isolated incident and that there is no threat to public safety. I should also mention, Bakari, the 2 other women who were in the vehicle not injured, they are okay. But that third woman, again, a 33-year-old woman, does remain in hospital this hour fighting for her life. Back to you.
Melissa Duggan, thank you. And a man's been rushed to hospital after a stabbing on a streetcar downtown this afternoon. CP24's Andrew Braden joins us live from Dundas University with the details. Andrew.
Well, Bakari, here at Dundas and St. Patrick, you wouldn't expect with the traffic reopened, people waiting for their streetcar, that anything would have transpired here, except if you look on the ground and notice blood spatter in the street and here on the side of the sidewalk. So about 3:10, a call came into police with an altercation reported on a streetcar that got out of hand and then out of the actual doors of the streetcar and ended in the street. We are told that a man sustained serious, but thankfully non-life-threatening injuries. Now, police have said that since then, this would be roughly about 40 minutes ago, that someone was apprehended and taken into custody. We don't have much details about the suspect in this case. And as for the victim, like I said before, they do have serious injuries, but are expected to pull through. With this in mind, now that the street is open, we have heard from the TTC in the last few minutes saying we are aware of this incident this afternoon, and we do continue to assist TPS as they investigate, including sharing video evidence from the vehicle. While we don't know yet the circumstances around this incident, the safety and security of our customers and employees is paramount, which is why we made record investments in these areas in our last budget. Finalizing with our thoughts are with the victim for a full recovery. We heard just as police were taking down the police tape that there had been diversions along the streetcar network, as much as this really does need to be centered around the injuries to someone on a streetcar, public transit in Toronto. The other thing to bear in mind is Dundas is one of only few thoroughfares that doesn't have diversions in the city right now, causing added congestion and a bit of chaos for about 45 minutes to an hour as police were investigating the stabbing. Bakari, I'll send it back to you.
CP24's Andrew Brennan, thank you very much. Right now, it is 5:05, 23 degrees. Let's get a check on the commute with CP24's traffic specialist, Adjoa. No such thing as rush hour in Bois.
Yeah, it continues to be quite the tough go if you're trying to make your way home this hour, especially coming out of Oakville and Burlington. We'll start on the QEW eastbound. This is just as you make your way east of Burloak. Stalled truck off to the side. Still the right lane blocked. Looks like they're waiting on heavy tow, so there's a bit of a bottleneck. Then if you're on the Niagara-bound lanes of the QEW heading into Burlington, just as you make your way through Appleby Line, good news. Had the HOV and left lane out with problems. That did all clear. Remains pretty busy on the Gardner as you make your way into and head out of the downtown core. Long-term construction is the reason. And I'll leave you with some good news. Still busy on the 401, obviously. We had problems on the eastbound 401 through Dixon Martin Grove. Was a collision, was in the right lane. It is gone. On city streets, a reminder, we are still dealing with the closure of westbound Dundas, shut down from University to St. Patrick, following a police investigation. I'll send it back to you, Bakari.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
A documentary about Russian soldiers screened at TIFF this afternoon, despite calls from Ukrainian officials and others for the film to be pulled. So protesters gathered outside Scotiabank Arena this afternoon where the film Russians at War was shown. In a letter to TIFF CEO Cameron Bailey, Ukraine's consul general says that the film attempts to absolve the soldiers in question of responsibility of the invasion in Ukraine.
Сегодня мы выдвигаемся на фронт.
The documentary is from Russian-Canadian director Anastasia Trofimova, and it premiered at the Venice Film Festival last week. The director says that the film is not propaganda and was filmed without the permission of the Russian government, putting her life at risk, of criminal prosecution in Russia.
She said she didn't see any war crimes. She said she spent 7 months with a Russian invading unit, and she said they were just ordinary guys, deceived by the media. So I think that it's very hard to take her words seriously. I think that this film is propaganda, highly crafted propaganda that tries to whitewash the crimes of Russian soldiers in Ukraine.
When I found out that TIFF has decided to screen Russians at War, I was shocked, and I was shocked because I am both a part of the community, of filmmaking community, and I'm a part of Ukrainian community. And for TIFF to platform voices of war criminals that commit war crimes daily and are killing my people, civilians, my brothers and sisters and my family, has been an insult.
Finance Minister and Deputy PM Chrystia Freeland joined the call to pull the documentary from the festival. She says Canadian money should not be put towards supporting this kind of film.
We have to be really clear that this is a war where there is no moral equivalency. This is a war of Russian aggression. This is a war where Russia is breaking international law and committing war crimes. There is very clearly good and evil in this war. Ukrainians are fighting for their sovereignty and for democracy around the world.
CP24 has reached out to TIFF for a response to Freeland's comment, as well as the calls to remove the film from the festival. Well, singer and producer Pharrell Williams was on hand for the screening of a documentary about his life and career. Pharrell arrived on the red carpet at the Princess of Wales Theatre this afternoon with a miniature version of himself in Lego form. The film, called Piece by Piece, tells his story entirely with Lego, from growing up in Virginia to his work as a music producer and artist.
It just makes it universal. If I am just literally, a black man in America from a marginalized community, there are some people who want to see that and some people who don't. And I didn't want to tell a story that's like poverty porn, that's like a usual Hollywood trope. And that's not what this is. This is not Hollywood, this is humanity. And I think Lego really helps to universalize the story so that it can be received by anyone that comes from a marginalized community.
The red carpet is just wrapped up for the Canadian premiere of the film Saturday night. Right now, let's go live to CP24's Ji Lee, who's at the Royal Alexandra Theatre. Ji, did you laugh?
I laughed so hard, and it was what you would imagine on the set of Saturday Night Live. Can I do one thing? I've always wanted to do this, okay? Are you ready? Live from New York, it's Saturday night! Okay, how fun was that? And again, this was Jason Reitman's Canadian premiere for Saturday night. You saw just now we had a star-studded cast on the red carpet, so many of the cast members walking by. This movie focuses on the lead up to the very first episode of Saturday Night ever, and this is taking place in the 1970s, so you've got a lot of these younger actors playing iconic comedians, like playing Dan Aykroyd, as well as John Belushi, and then even a young Lorne Michaels. And then you have some veteran actors in this as well, J.K. Simmons and Willem Dafoe. They are here, they walked the red carpet. Here's what they had to say.
Coming home sort of aspect to it. Much less terrifying being on set with Jason and knowing that it wasn't live. Yeah, it was the first time was like being shot out of a cannon. And everybody's that I've talked to who's hosted has had that same crazy experience.
Fantastic. He was turned on, energetic, and the way he was shooting was very particular and special, so that was great.
And that's the kind of red carpet we were having right here at Saturday night. So again, it's the Canadian premiere. The film just got underway at Royal Alexandra. It started at 5 p.m. I've never seen a red carpet like this ever, where it was a gazillion cast members, but also coming up, they all pulled up in this massive bus, came onto the red carpet. There were fans everywhere cheering and walked in, and we interviewed them in groups. And let me tell you, it was a lot of fun, a lot of spontaneity, and you could just tell that the cast of Saturday Night gelled really well while filming this movie. So again, the Canadian premiere of Saturday Night taking place here at the Royal Alexandra. Okay, we'll send it back to you, Bakari.
Hey, G, I have to say, you had me at Live from New York. Nice job.
You're welcome.
All right, it's 5:12, 22 degrees. This is Live at 5, and coming up, we're going to tell you why health officials in Peel Region are warning Mississauga residents about rabies. A new report shows over 1 million people in Ontario visited a food bank in the last year. That's a new record. Feed Ontario says that food bank visits were up 134% from 2019 to 2020. They also note that food banks are feeling the pressure, with more than half worried about meeting the increased demand. And the data shows the main causes of food insecurity are mostly the result of the rapid increase in cost of living.
1 million people represents 1 million people in Ontario not having enough food to eat. 1 million people having to make impossible choices between paying their rent and choosing groceries for their family. And 1 million people not being able to keep their head above water and needing help. And 1 million people individually walking through the door of a food bank for groceries that they would otherwise have to go without.
I'm sure I can speak for the food bankers here when I say that we are tired of breaking records. We are tired of coming to the media and saying that things have only gotten worse. And we are tired of feeling like those in government who should be responding with a sense of urgency aren't hearing the alarm bells that we're ringing. I'm sure there are days when food bankers would like to turn away from the problem, dismiss it, pretend it isn't as big of a deal as it really is. But we can't, because as Carolyn said, we're not talking today about numbers. We're talking today about people with real stories walking through our doors.
The City of Mississauga has seen the largest escalation in food bank visits in all of Ontario or Canada in the last 12 months. Over the last year, Food Banks Mississauga and our network of over 60 agency members provided food support to over 56,000 neighbors, over 420,000 times. That's 8% of Mississauga's population, 58% more people than last year. And sadly, we also saw an increase of 42% in children using the food bank in Mississauga. Back in 2019, 1 in 37 residents of our city came to the food bank, and now it's 1 in every 13.
Feed Ontario says more funding needs to go to social support programs as well as affordable housing. Well, 2 cases of rabies have been detected in bats in Mississauga. The city's urging residents be cautious as rabies poses a serious health risk to humans. The virus is spread through bites or scratches from infected animals and causes inflammation of the spinal cord and brain. And these are the 9th and 10th cases reported in the city in the last 5 years.
It's the summertime and it's nice weather. People are enjoying the outdoors and they may be going out for walks or taking their pets out. So, just some common sense measures, like always remembering to keep your pets on a leash so that they're not necessarily getting into contact with any other types of wildlife, or because people are keeping their windows open more in the summertime, you may have a bat entering your home. So again, just taking precautions, such as if you do find a bat in your home, do not try to remove it yourself and to call Wildlife Animal Services.
Just last week, Ontario reported its first human case of rabies in the province, more than half a century after a person in the Temiskaming region had direct contact with a bat. Well, Ontario residents will soon be able to get their annual flu shot. The government says that flu vaccines will be available for most vulnerable and high-priority populations early next month. That includes hospital patients and staff, as well as long-term care home residents and workers. The general public will be able to get vaccinated against the flu for free starting October 28th. Shots will be available at doctors' offices, participating pharmacies, and through some public health units. Well, speaking of, Health Canada is explaining why it told provinces and territories to toss their existing COVID-19 vaccines before it approved new shots. The agency says that it issued the directive to avoid confusion with new formulations that will have the same drug identification numbers. It's still reviewing vaccines that have been updated to target a more recent strain with an expected fall rollout. Well, some pharmacists and doctors have said that could leave gaps in vaccine access. However, the agency says that it's the same practice that's used with other regularly updated shots. New royal portraits are up inside of Queen's Park. The pictures of King Charles and Queen Camilla are now hanging outside the chamber. According to the federal government, the king is wearing the insignia of the Order of Canada, which he first received as Prince of Wales from then Governor General David Johnson. That was in 2017. Camilla is wearing the maple leaf brooch, which was given to Queen Elizabeth in 1939 when she made her first royal tour of Canada. Right now it's 5:19, 22 degrees. This is Live at 5. We're hearing from Mark Carney for the first time since being named special advisor to the Liberal Party. That's next. Former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney addressed the federal Liberal caucus retreat in BC after being named a special advisor to the party. Carney is chairing a task force on economic growth for the Liberals. He presented MPs with his vision for their economic plan today. Carney's appointment as a special advisor was announced just yesterday, and it comes as speculation continues to surround his interest in making the move to politics.
I have some experience in these issues, and I'm interested in helping our country to grow. I'm interested in doing something, not being something. And this is a decisive time for our economy. These issues have to be tackled head on.
Many analysts view Carney as a potential successor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for the Liberal leadership. Well, the federal New Democrats are meeting in Montreal over the next 3 days to plot out their upcoming legislative strategy. Leader Jagmeet Singh announced last week his party was, quote, ripping up the confidence and supply agreement that has propped up the Liberals' government. Instead, the NDP will vote on each confidence motion on its own merit. The party will be looking to discuss their priorities for the fall parliamentary session. And federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has addressed comments made by Premier Doug Ford yesterday, where he claimed Singh was, quote, blowing smoke when it comes to calling an early federal election.
I think Doug Ford needs to worry about delivering health care for people in Canada instead of being obsessed with alcohol. People in Ontario can't get the health care they need. They're struggling with the cost of living, and he's obsessed with alcohol and convenience stores. Like, I don't know any person that I've spoken to when I tour Ontario, when I'm in the communities, that say that that's their number one pressing issue. They say we need to be able to afford our groceries. We need to be able to find a home that we can afford. We need to get health care. And I think Doug Ford should focus on those things instead of being stuck on Twitter.
CTV's Rachel Aiello joined us from Montreal with more on the NDP agenda.
Jagmeet Singh is not getting the same kind of leadership whispers we're hearing about Justin Trudeau over in Nanaimo. His party is fully behind him. He was asked a couple times today during his press conference, though, what would happen in these upcoming by-elections, one in an NDP-held riding, one in a Liberal riding they're hoping to win. If the NDP support doesn't show up the way they're hoping, what could that mean for Singh's leadership? And he is adamant that he is staying on. He will be the person to lead them into the next election. But the leader that is on the lips of some New Democrats here is Justin Trudeau. We asked some MPs on their way into caucus meetings today how they were feeling getting out of the deal, and what they told us is that they are feeling lighter now that they've got some distance from the Liberals, and that essentially what they were hearing on the doorsteps from their constituents all summer long is that the Trudeau brand, as one put it, was radioactive.
And the meetings come ahead of the new session of Parliament, which opens Monday. Right now it's 5:24, 22 degrees. This is Live at 5. Coming up, a new study finds pandemic lockdowns have aged teenage brains faster. A new study finds the pandemic resulted in changes to teens' brain development. Research shows that COVID lockdowns aged teenagers' brains faster than the usual rate, especially in girls. Girls' brains aged 4 years faster compared to a year faster for boys. Experts say that lockdowns led to an increase in anxiety, depression, and behavioral disorders, causing brains to mature faster. Authors of the study believe adolescent girls were most impacted because they're often more dependent on social interaction and friendships. Well, the province has launched an online survey asking for feedback on life skills that should be included in its new home economics curriculum. The survey is divided into 3 sections: personal health and safety, household management skills, and time management and technological skills. So some examples include fixing a flat tire, safely cooking meat, and learning how to budget. The survey will be open until October 1st. Well, registration is open for City of Toronto fall recreation programming. The online portal is now open for programs that begin September 28th. Approximately 16,000 registered programs with more than 160,000 spaces are available for those of all ages and skill levels. Programs include swimming, skating, fitness, and arts. Right now it's 5:28, 22 degrees. This is Live at 5. A woman's fighting for her life in hospital after a shooting near the QEW in Mississauga. A shooting near Mississauga Road. A woman goes to hospital in life-threatening condition. Police are trying to figure out how this happened. A stabbing on a streetcar this afternoon near University and Dundas. Someone is in custody. We'll have a live update from the scene in moments. World premiere, celebrities, red carpet, and protests. We'll tell you about the turn that day 6 at TIFF has taken. Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, the 2 candidates for U.S. president debate tonight. We have your preview coming up. This is Live at 5. Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage. A woman's fighting for her life in hospital after being shot near the QEW and Mississauga Road. Police are still searching for who did this. Right now, let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan, who's in Mississauga this evening. Melissa.
Yeah, Bakari, we're hearing that in this case, multiple shots were fired. That's what police are saying. And kind of a strange set of circumstances as well. A real shock for people working at a construction site behind me here at Mississauga Road and the QEW, because around 4 a.m. is when a vehicle rolled up, 3 women inside, one of them suffering from gunshot wounds. Someone ran out of that vehicle to try to get some help. A construction worker was able to communicate with them. Here's how he described what happened.
I didn't expect that to happen. Obviously, it just was on call for, right? So imagine just working your night shift, and then next thing you know, some woman is just running, crying, asking for help, and caught me off guard. And then obviously, my work wasn't a priority anymore, and obviously, my concern for that person was hopefully she would be okay and recover from that head wound.
We're also getting some details from police as well. A couple of different scenes that they have been investigating that led up to this final discovery of this person being injured in this vehicle. And here's some of what Peel police are saying.
From what we understand so far, the shooting occurred somewhere here on Mississauga Road.
just north of that, and the victim's vehicle following the shooting ended up in this location where we are right now, and the suspects had already fled prior to police even arriving on scene.
What I can tell you about the victim, 33 years old, a woman. She remains in hospital. Speaking with Peel Police just a short time ago, saying that her condition is still considered life-threatening. Those injuries are. She is fighting for her life at this hour. As for suspects, Bakari, no description. Police are still looking for suspects. They say that people fled the scene before officers actually arrived. No word on what vehicle they were driving. Police, though, saying that they believe this was an isolated incident. Back to you.
Okay, live in Mississauga, CP24's Melissa Duggan. Well, a man's been rushed to hospital after a stabbing on a streetcar downtown this afternoon. CP24's Andrew Brennan joins us live from Dundas University with the details. Andrew.
Well, Bakari, we're just here at Dundas between McCall and beside St. Patrick. And in front of a police station, this stabbing happened about 3:10 p.m. Police saying that's when they got the call about an altercation on the streetcar. We can see, based on, well, splatters of blood, that it went from inside the streetcar. There was blood along the floor, heading towards the doorway, and then through the doorway onto the street, and then towards a column of one of the buildings on the north side of Dundas. Now, according to police, a man was rushed to hospital with injuries that are serious, but thankfully he's expected to pull through non-life-threatening injuries. And an update from Toronto Police in the 4 o'clock hour that they had apprehended a suspect. Not a lot of details about that suspect, but we do know that the person police believe is behind this stabbing downtown on a streetcar is in custody. Toronto's Transit Commission also responding as well in a statement saying we're aware of this incident, saying that they're helping Toronto Police as best as possible, including sharing video evidence as needed. The other thing that they say is, well, we don't know the circumstances. According to TTC, the primary concern for the Toronto Transit Commission is safety and security, and saying that their thoughts do go out to the victim as well. And as I said before, Bakari, we do know, based on police, that this victim, this man who was stabbed ultimately on a streetcar, is expected to pull through. Their injuries non-life-threatening. The street has reopened in the last half hour or so. Streetcars are moving, although there is a bit of a backlog. I'll send it back to you.
Okay, from Dundas University, CP24's Andrew Brennan. Thank you. Well, students return to Agincourt Collegiate today. This is after a shooting in the school parking lot yesterday. That sent a 16-year-old boy to hospital.
Just a bit nervous because I'm not sure whether the person is going to come back or not.
At least they're like keeping eye on the school and stuff. I think that's probably the best approach they could have taken.
Pretty frightening because I was in the cafeteria in the school, and we were suddenly rushed into one of the science labs over there.
Police say the teen was grazed in the head by a bullet and is expected to recover. Investigators are calling this a targeted shooting, but they wouldn't say what circumstances led to the daylight gunfire. They are looking for a teenage suspect. Several schools in that area, they were also put under lockdown. Well, frontline education workers and the Ontario NDP, they're calling on the government to address violence in classrooms all across the province. They want the education minister to immediately implement an emergency plan to end school violence. Advocates say that the plan should have funding to hire more staff, including mental health workers and early childhood educators. They say more money is also needed for training. The NDP and education worker unions say the problem of violence in schools has become worse since the pandemic.
To be clear, this is not the fault of students. This is what happens when the government cuts education funding and doesn't support kids properly. When a child with an IEP or a safety plan that requires one-on-one time doesn't get it because there is just not enough education workers to provide it. When a teacher has more students who are struggling than they can possibly help in a day. When the therapies and supports are not there in and out of the classroom throughout a student's childhood.
In my own experience, I have been one of those staff who have spent my day going from one violent incident to another. I have been kicked, punched, spit on, pushed into objects, had objects such as pieces of furniture thrown at me, bit, and in recent years, have even been lifted off the ground by my neck. The education system is failing, or is falling apart. We are losing educated, competent staff to the burnout and injury. Schools are unable to get qualified people to come in to replace them and are left to fill these vacancies with unqualified individuals who are not trained to respond to these incidences.
Advocates also want to see a province-wide reporting tool created that can be used to log incidents of violence in schools. An Ontario Appeals Court judge has yet to decide whether Jacob Hoggard should get bail as he looks to appeal his sexual assault conviction to the Supreme Court. Justice Jill Copeland heard arguments today and reserved her decision for a later date. A former Headley frontman only began serving his prison sentence a few weeks ago. The Crown asked Copeland to quash the bail motion, arguing that Hoggard, his grounds for appeal to the Supreme Court are weak and unlikely to gain traction. Hoggard was found guilty in June of 2022 of sexual assault causing bodily harm. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. And right now it's 5:38, 22 degrees. Let's get a check on the commute with CP24's traffic specialist, Adjoa Nziayaboa.
Oh, good afternoon, Bakari. And still watching a problem if you're trying to make your way home this hour on the northbound lanes of the 427. It's north of Highway 7. HOV lane blocked with a collision. The good news, the left lane was blocked. That's since reopened, but still pretty slow onto the 401. If you're on the 401, definitely a busy afternoon as you travel across the top of the city, heading further east into Durham. Slowdowns as well, and remains busiest on the northbound lanes of the Don Valley Parkway from north of Bayview Bloor right on through to the 401. On city streets, a brand new collision blocking lanes on Yonge and Steeles. I'll send it back to you, Bakari.
Okay, thanks, Adj.
You're welcome.
It's 5:38, 22 degrees. This is Lab at 5. Well, the stars walked the red carpet for the premiere of the film Saturday night. We're going to have highlights from day 6 of TIFF next. Well, the red carpet has just wrapped up for the Canadian premiere of the film Saturday night. For more, let's go live from Toronto to CP24's Ji Young Lee. You see what I did there, G?
Hi. I totally did. And Bakari, can I point out something? I am standing on the red carpet where the stars actually take their photos in front of the still photographers. The lighting here is beautiful. I wish these lights could follow me everywhere I go because, as you know, lighting is everything. This was a jam-packed red carpet. I've actually never been to a carpet like this ever, where it was a massive group of cast members walking, and they all wanted to chat. They were all so much fun. We were doing several interviews in groups. Saturday night, this is directed by Jason Reitman, Canadian filmmaker, as you may know, and basically what he's done is he's taken us back to the 70s, and it's leading up to the very first episode of Saturday Night Live. So you have a lot of these young actors playing iconic comedians and actors. We had a chance to speak to Dylan O'Brien. He plays a young Dan Aykroyd in Saturday Night. Here's what he had to say.
This is highly representative of how it felt. You kind of didn't have time to think, so you just show up and let it fly and then try to get some sleep.
I can tell that the cast of Saturday Night really gelled because they all seemed like best buddies when they were talking to all the different media crews. And what was really amazing was there were bus loads of them coming. We've never seen anything like that before. This is the Canadian premiere of Saturday Night. And, you know, we know that this iconic show, which was developed by Lorne Michaels, another well-known famous Canadian, Saturday Night Live, believe it or not, is in its 49th season, and it will be approaching the big 5-0. So the timing of this film is amazing. And we also know that for Jason Reitman, he wrote for about a week on Saturday Night Live years ago, and he said it was the most incredible experience ever. He walked the red carpet. He did not do any interviews, but we did have a chance to speak to some of the actors, including J.K. Simmons, Willem Dafoe. They're all in this film. It's underway right now, the Canadian premiere. Bakari, I'm just going to soak in the beautiful lighting here.
All right, I love it. Live from New York, actually Toronto, CP24's Ji Young Lee. Thanks a lot, G. Well, singer and producer Pharrell Williams was on hand for the screening of a documentary about his life and career. Pharrell arrived on the red carpet at the Princess of Wales Theatre with a miniature version of himself in Lego form. The film, called Piece by Piece, it tells his story entirely with Lego, from growing up in Virginia to his work as a music producer and artist. And Pharrell says that he believes that toy bricks help to universalize his story.
There are a lot of people who are going through a lot of struggles in this lifetime, and having a story that you can relate to that reminds you that, number one, it's never too late. Like, now is better than never. And that whether you're 8 or 80 years old, you can go after your dream and build it piece by piece.
And a documentary about Russian soldiers screened at TIFF this afternoon, despite calls from Ukrainian officials and others for the film to be pulled. So protesters gathered outside Scotiabank Arena this afternoon, where the film Russians at War was shown. In a letter to TIFF CEO Cameron Bailey, Ukraine's consul general says that the film attempts to absolve the soldiers in question of responsibility in the invasion of Ukraine.
Message before Venice screening, and now she is trying to come across as more anti-war and more on the right side of the history, but the fact that she's changing her messages so often is quite telling. And again, as a filmmaker myself, I understand her desire to show the stories, to tell the stories of people who are currently going unheard. The thing is that I can see this movie, I can watch this movie in 10 years. I will have no issue. Once the war is over, I will have no issue platforming, supporting, and talking about this film, but not right now.
Answers must be given how this film received Canadian taxpayers' money. And unfortunately, so far, we didn't see any clear answers, neither from Canadian organizations that funded the film or from the festival. I think that it's very irresponsible at the time when the international community is investing enormous resources to fight the propaganda. The Russian propaganda film receives funding in Canada. So we think that some strong actions have to be taken.
And the documentary is from Russian-Canadian director Anastasia Trofimova, and it premiered at the Venice Film Festival last week. The director says that the film is not propaganda and was filmed without the permission of the Russian government, putting her at risk of criminal prosecution in Russia. And Finance Minister and Deputy PM Chrystia Freeland joined the call to pull the documentary from the festival. She says Canadian money should not be put towards supporting this kind of film.
We have to be really clear that this is a war where there is no moral equivalency. This is a war of Russian aggression. This is a war where Russia is breaking international law and committing war crimes. There is very clearly good and evil in this war. Ukrainians are fighting for their sovereignty and for democracy around the world.
CP24 has reached out to TIFF for a response to Freeland's comments, as well as the calls to remove the film from the festival. Right now it's 5:47, 22 degrees. This is Live at 5, and just ahead, we'll speak with American historian Alan Lichtman to preview tonight's U.S. presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. An Israeli strike on a crowded tent camp housing in Gaza. It killed at least 19 people and wounded 60 others. This is according to Palestinian officials. This happened in Mawasi, an area full of tent camps that Israel designated as a humanitarian zone for hundreds of thousands of civilians. First responders dug through the sand and rubble with garden tools, as well as their bare hands, using mobile phone flashlights, looking for survivors. The Israeli military said that it had struck Hamas militants in a command and control center embedded in the area. Well, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly says that Ottawa prohibits any Canadian-made weapons from reaching the Gaza Strip.
Our policy is clear. We will not have any form of arms or parts of arms be sent to Gaza, period. How they're being sent and where they're being sent is irrelevant. And so, therefore, my position is clear, the position of the government is clear.
Joly's comments come weeks after the U.S. announced plans to send Quebec-made ammunition to Israel. Joly now says that Ottawa's policy is that Canadian-made arms and components cannot be used in the Gaza Strip, regardless of how they're sent to Israel. Ottawa stopped approving new arms permits for Israel in January. And Joly says that she's also had 30 existing permits suspended. Well, the Federal Court of Appeal says that Facebook breached Canada's privacy laws by not informing users about risks to their data. The panel of judges says that the platform's parent company failed to adequately supervise millions of apps that it invited onto the social media sites. The court also found that Meta did not obtain consent required under the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act. The decision overturns a 2023 federal court ruling. The privacy commissioner says that the ruling acknowledges that international firms must respect Canadian privacy law. Well, the clock's ticking towards the first presidential debate tonight between U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. They're going to square off in Philadelphia in what may be the election race's only debate ahead of the November vote. Right now, we're joined live by American historian Alan Lichtman. Alan, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. So I want to start off with this. What do you hope to see versus what you expect to see tonight?
Well, I hope to see a replay of the 1960 Kennedy-Nixon debate, which was substantive, it was knowledgeable, it was respectful, all the debates, and gave a great deal of information to the American people. That's not what I expect tonight. If Donald Trump's performance in the first debate is any indication, I would expect him to lie through the debate. He lied one lie for every 1 minute to 20 to 30 seconds, 20 lies in the course of a single debate, and calling huge lies like everybody supported the overturning of Roe versus Wade, when over 60% consistently in the polls opposed the overturning. He continued to lie about the 2020 election. He lied about prices going up 400%. They went up 20%. And, you know, the real question for Harris would be, how does she deal with this torrent of lies? I hope she would deal with it calmly and respectfully, but I don't know if that's going to be the case.
Okay, along those lines, what are your thoughts on presidential posturing, decorum, because mics will be muted during this debate? What role do you think that's going to have?
Well, you know, decorum does play a role in public reaction. I think Donald Trump's decorum contributed to his losing all the debates to Hillary Clinton. But let me say this, debates do not predict election results. They can be interesting and informative, but they're not predictive. Clinton won all the debates and still lost. John Kerry won the debates against that terrible debater, George W. Bush, in 2004, and still lost. I have my own system for predicting elections, the 13 Keys to the White House, which doesn't look at the ephemera of campaigns, but looks at the fundamentals of how elections really work as votes up or down on the strength and performance of the White House party. And that's why I issued my prediction before the debate to emphasize the big message, it's governing, not campaigning, that counts.
All right, well, tonight's preview, American historian Alan Lichtman. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Take care.
Right now it's 5:55, 22 degrees. This is Live at 5. Coming up, a historic cinema in the West End has a new lease on life.
Brandon Nimmo now facing Nance. And that's off of Servin. And the go-ahead run will score.
The Blue Jays continued their series tonight against the New York Mets after losing the opener. So last night at Rogers Center, the Jays were up 2-1 in the eighth when things went off the rails thanks to sloppy defense. The Mets took advantage of a throwing error, a wild pitch, and a pass ball to score 2 runs. They went on to win the game 3-2. And with the victory, New York moves into sole possession of the third and final wild card spot in the National League. Chris Bassett starts for the Jays tonight. The Mets counter with David Peterson. First pitch is just after 7 o'clock. Historic Cinema in the West End has a new lease on life. Owners of the Review Cinema say a 5-year lease has been signed that'll keep the theater in its location on Roncesvalles Avenue. That's where it's been for over a century. The Review was facing closure in late June because of a dispute over a lease renewal. The Review Film Society was eventually granted a court injunction that prevented an eviction and allowed the cinema to remain open. Well, people across the country will be lacing up their shoes to raise money for cancer research this weekend. The Terry Fox Run is back for its 44th year. The event commemorates Fox's Marathon of Hope. Millions of Canadians from more than 650 communities are set to participate. The theme of this year's run is no matter what. Right now it's 5:59, 22 degrees. This is Toronto's breaking news, CP24. Thank you for watching. CTV News at 6 is next.